What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It's Tactical Foul. Today, I have another guest, very special guest that I'm really excited to talk to, especially his view on things when it comes from an educational standpoint, because that's what he's really in deep with in terms of the academy game over in England. He's a former Antigua and Barbuda U20 national player. He's the head of academy education, and he's a U15 coach for Leyton Orient Football Club. Please welcome Craig Heskey.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Good to be on. Carl, I appreciate you bringing me on, man. This is big for me. So I'm glad that you give me the opportunity for me to basically express myself and express the views that I've got with the world. So I appreciate everything you're doing, and I'm glad to be here.
No, absolutely. It's a pleasure. Obviously, connected through Twitter, and you kind of were, and I think it's something that people don't do enough. You were like, you basically said like, so I want to get on to podcasts and different things to talk about, different things. A lot dealing I think with like the youth game and stuff like that. I think that was the initial thing that you were talking about, and I think it's great. Like I don't understand why people are so afraid to just like reach out and like say, hey, I want to do this. Like get me on, blah blah blah. It's like that's the way it should be. Like if you think that you have something to say or you have something valuable, like you might as well try to put it out there. I think people are stuck in this like I don't want to ask for things, like I'll look bad if I do that. It's like no, like let's hear it. And
Yeah,
I'm glad that
100%.
you did that for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's important, especially the topic that obviously that we're going to discuss today, because it's fresh. It's something that's never been spoken about, and the more you're in depth with it, you actually start to understand. You know what? Okay, there is a lot of issues around the game, especially when it comes to guidance of players going through academies into the pro game and what they do next and what they do when they finish. And there's so much to discuss that hasn't been discussed yet. So it's definitely important for me to get what I know, especially from what I've experienced in academies and experienced through. So I have a family member of mine who was an ex-professional. So he's recently retired in the last couple of years, England international, 67 caps I think he's got. So he's had a very, very good career. And talking to him and all of the other, like his ex-teammates, it starts to find a trend that, yeah, this is happening where people are stuck. They're in the game and they don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
They don't have much guidance. And we just see them on TV and think, wow, they're surrounded by money. They've got all the attributes in the world to do whatever they want, but not all forgetting that they're human beings. So yeah, I think it's a very very important for me to get that sort of word out, especially when I've come from an education background, as you said. About I'm big on life skills and preparing those boys to be athletes. The coaches will deal with what they've got to deal with for them on the field, but I'm dealing with the stuff off it. So preparing them for that next step in their lives and making sure that they're the best equipped that they possibly can be to then go and thrive in terms of what they want to do as a player.
No, absolutely. And I we're gonna obviously get into that, but before we do, I want to kind of give an opportunity just to like kind of hear where you come from, like your background in especially in the game, different things like that,
Yeah.
so everyone can kind of understand exactly where you're coming from. So what were
Sure.
the early years for you, like growing up, like into football? Obviously, you kind of talked a little bit about having your cousin, family member in the game, professional, high level. So what was that like at an early age for you?
Yeah, so for me, my love for the game probably started when I was about 5 years old. I'm 30 now, so we're talking 25 years ago. So yeah, my love for the game, I was at five, um, mainly based around my cousin. So my dad had reached out to me, he goes, Craig, come downstairs. And I'm thinking, what does he want? So yeah, I've gone downstairs and he goes, look, that's your cousin on the TV. Obviously, I don't know who the hell he is at this point. Um, then I see him on the TV. I see his shirt's got the same name as mine, so he's a Heskey. And I'm like, oh my god, like yeah, this is someone I'm related to. I'm like, wow. So since then, I always wanted to be a footballer. That was always the path that I wanted to do. Once I got into secondary school, also you guys were known as high school. That's when I first started to play football for a team and play for the school team as well. And I pretty much grew from there. So I went into the semi-professional games, so it's pretty much what we would know as it's known as non-league. So it's the steps below the professional level. So those
Right.
that are trying to reach to the next step. And I was playing for a club that were doing really well at the time, and my dad used to always say to me, Craig, what are you going to do if you don't make it in football? And I'm like, don't be negative, Dad. I'm gonna make it. Like, don't want to hear that. And same thing. You go to your teachers. You got teachers preparing you for university, and they're like, look, what are you going to do if the opportunity doesn't come, like, don't be negative. Like, this is gonna happen. I work hard, and I love the game so much. Somewhere down the line, it's gonna happen for me. Um, that's when my opportunity to become an international came into play. So I was in, how old was I? I would have been 17 at the time. I got the opportunity to play for Antigua. So Antigua had come to England for a training camp. So I bumped into one guy, funnily enough, after one of my college matches, and he said to me, "Oh, you're Craig Heskey, right?" I'm like, yeah. This when MySpace was around, so I think he knew me from networking on that. So yeah. So you're showing your age, Carl, the fact that you know what that is.
A little bit, yeah.
So so he reached out to me. He goes, "Look, Antigua are coming. Are you interested?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." I knew I was never going to play for England, so I thought, "Yeah, why not? Cool, let's do this." So they've come over to England. They've done a training camp at a professional club called Ipswich. So it's the first ever time I got to be in a professional environment in terms of the facilities and stuff like that. And I was like, "Yeah, this is wicked. This is where I want to be. I want to do this." So at the time, they thought I was too young to play senior level, which is probably fair. Looking back at it now as a big man. So they said, when the under 20s have got games, we're going to draft you in. I said, cool, no problem. I'm down for that. So my college are very strict. I went to a Catholic college. So you trying to get out of term time to play football, that ain't happening. You don't stand a chance. So I had to write a letter to my head of sixth form, to the head of college, to say, look, this is a big opportunity for me. They're calling me up. I get to play in 2 games. I get to go abroad. They said to me, look, you need to be 3 weeks ahead of everybody if you you know, want to go and play. I mean, I was never big on education as a person anyway.
Right.
Me being in a position I'm in now was never ever something I wanted to do. But that and wanting to play football, and you're putting that in the way, I'll get what you want done. If that's what you want from me, even if it's an impossible task, which to some degree it is, for me to have to chase teachers, try and get them to give me work ahead of everybody else. That's extra planning for them as well. Me knowing that as being a teacher now as well. I mean, if a kid said that to me now, that'll throw me off the water, really. So I went and done that. So I done exactly what they wanted. So I've gone and played 2 games, played against Jamaica, played against Aruba. Probably the biggest experience in my football career in that respect. From since then, my career in football never ever got to professional. To be honest with you, again, looking back, it never good enough. Never really had the guidance to do so as well. Probably had an impact. So every decision I made by myself. So it wasn't necessarily I had someone to speak to help me with the decisions I was making, which probably had its factor, but it probably wasn't my journey anyway. Probably wasn't for me. So I've gone to university. Was looking at coming to America actually. I was going to do one of the football scholarships, but I've come from an area where it's rough, it's tough. Family doesn't have much money, so I knew it was something that was never really going to happen in terms of finances and stuff. So I just let that kind of go. So I've gone to university here, got 2 degrees. So I've got a degree in sports development. Sports has always been all I've known. Then I got my teaching degree after that. So then I became a teacher. And yeah, so I became a teacher full time. I've been coaching. So coaching was pretty much my main route. I started back in 2013. I had a junior football club called Newham Dragons. Our team was based around, we come from a very rough area. It's meant to be the roughest and poorest borough in the country. So you can imagine what sort of issues that could be surrounded by that. And we were all about getting the kids off the street, getting them on the football pitch, getting them playing. And we took a very big emphasis off Coach Carter. Coach Carter's been a very big influence in my life in terms of how I operate with his team when he was with at Richmond High School, and he took the basketball team, and if they weren't doing well in class, they weren't playing, they ran, we did all that sort of stuff. And when I was a coach at Dragons, and we used to go and look in the players' diary to see if they got detentions from school teachers, and no junior football club does that. They just get the kids to pay and they play, and that's it. But we were very big on that based on what we come from, based on the issues that we've been surrounded by as a kid ourselves. So yeah, my career in terms of coaching pretty much kicked off from there. I've gone and ran my own football academy at my last college that I was teaching at. And then from there, I got into Leighton Orient. So it's one of those things. I don't think me being in a position that I'm in comes down to hard work. It was more of a kind of fell on my lap kind of thing. But right place, right time. As much as I had a member of mine, so Emil Heskey was obviously a footballer. And yes, he probably could have got me in a lot of avenues when it came to the game. But this opportunity at Leighton Orient kind of fell in front of me. It's just luck of the draw. So Leighton Orient's come to my college because the boys at academy level, when they're under 18s, they still have to do education because they're still under 18. So they can't just go and play football every day and think that's it. They still have to be educated. So The club had come to the college I was currently teaching at, and the assistant principal spoke to me and says, yes, Leighton Orient coming in. I said, well, I've got to teach him. It's got to be me. Like, I'm the only person within the department that's one, heavily influenced by football, and on top of that, my CV in terms of football speaks for itself. So I've got to be guiding these kids. So they've given me the role to take lead on that. So I've met them, met the academy manager, and I think he was blown away by my intro. So I did an introduction for the boys, so induction day. And I think he was blown away by that. So he gave me his number. He said, look, if they give you any issues, let me know. So yeah, no problem. And then something just told me one day, let me just message this guy because I would love to coach at that level. So I said, if I wanted to get a job at this level, what do I need? So he's told me the qualifications you would need. And then straight away said to me, what, are you looking to do some support work? And I was like, hell yeah. Yeah, get me in. But obviously at the time I was still playing. So there was an opportunity to get in there. And I was like, oh my God, I still want to play. I love the game. I don't really want to give up my non-league career just yet. And yeah, it's got to a point where I spoke to my uncle about it. One of my uncles said, are you crazy? It's Leighton Orient, man. That's a big deal because Leighton Orient's not too far from where I live.
Yeah.
So it's down the road. I mean, West Ham is not too far either. So West Ham's moved to my area. Probably a mile from there, you've got Leighton Orient. So it didn't really hit me when I first got the opportunity to go there. I was like, okay, yeah, Leighton. You know, my uncle said to me, it's Leighton Orient. Like, you've got to take that. Then it hit me properly. I was like, wait, hold on. If I go and take this job, who knows what I could possibly go with it
Right.
in terms of going through the club and becoming, you know, first team manager at some point. Who knows what could happen? So I had to take that role. So yes, I'm all in. Let's do it. So then it kind of grew from there. And then the opportunity to become head of education came up. Obviously, I asked my gaffer. I said, look, what do you need me? What do you need me to do? Whatever you need me to do, I'll go and do it. And it just pretty much went from there. So here I am as head of education. So I've left the full-time teaching role now into Leighton Orient full-time. And yeah, this is where I am. So that you can, as you can see through my life story, probably boring anyway, but football's been all I've ever known, really. So for me to be now be in a position where I'm working in football full-time is not, it's something I've obviously imagined from a playing side, but from a non-playing side, it was always like, yeah, I could probably go into coaching or something like that. But to now physically be in it is like, wow. Like I've said to myself, I've got to be in football somehow, especially when I was a teenager. To now be in it full time as a full-on adult is quite an achievement. So yeah, here I am.
No, absolutely. And I do, obviously, we're talking about the coaching and the education part real quick, but I am curious a little bit about the playing side still because you, like you're saying, like right as this was happening, your non-league career is still going, and it seems like you've drawn a lot from that experience into everything that you're doing now. So, as a non-league player or whatever, I guess one, are you still playing? Obviously, not right now, clearly, but
Yeah,
up until this, are you still playing? And what are you able to really? How are you able to use that non-league experience in what you're doing right now?
it's a very good question. So in terms of me playing, I'm getting back into it now.
Okay.
When I first got my role at Leighton Orient, I pretty much put it on the back burner. I said, no, let me stop. I knew that football would always be there. I'll go and get myself fit. I'll find the club. It'll be no problem. At the same time, I felt like I was falling out of love with the game at that point. That's
Okay.
what I was telling myself anyway. And yeah, it just got to a point where I said to myself, you know what, Leighton Orient, because we trained, I think, 3 nights a week.
Right.
So that's what the kids do. So obviously, non-league players, we train in the evenings. We go to work during the day, train in the evenings, then play on the weekends, or have match sometimes in midweek in the evenings as well. So it wasn't working. There's no way
Right.
some clubs are going to allow me to train once a week, then play on a Saturday, compared to those that are training twice a week, putting in the graft. So I thought, you know what, rather than put myself through that hassle, let me just leave it there. This is a big opportunity. It's Leighton Orient. Not everybody can get this opportunity. So I thought, let me leave that there. Play so your grassroots sort of, you know, just little league sort of teams where you just sit there, you just kind of turn up on a Sunday and play football. So at least do that to keep yourself ticking over.
Right.
But yeah, get into Leighton Orient full time. So yeah, I went into Leighton Orient, and I must admit, when I first went in, I was nervous, especially from the coaching point of view, because I was looking at the players, and for the first time ever, I was in a position where I thought, whoa, these players are giving me a run for my money, quality wise on the ball. I was like, oh my God, I was used to being better than all the players that I coached. So I knew I had something to teach them.
Right.
But this was the first time I was in a position like, whoa, especially the under 16, so the 15-year-olds, yeah, their first touch is sharp. If I get in there in the mix of them, I need to be on the ball. Like if I'm not on the ball, I'm gonna get showing myself up. So yeah, it was difficult at first. So I thought, oh, you know what? I had to sit back a lot. So when I first got in, it wasn't just a jump in there and coach. I was watching all the coaches around me. So I was very big on observing, very big on picking up from coaches that are are currently in the setup. We tended to have a lot of coaches that were ex-players themselves. So those guys in particular, I thought, yeah, I want to pick up from you because you played. So see how they draw what they've got from playing into into what they do as a coach. And during my first year, that's pretty much what it was. So I got involved, did bits and pieces here and there. And again, when it came to my knowledge, I was downplaying my knowledge quite a bit based on where I played, because I know that Leighton Orient is a step higher than what I was currently coaching at, and in terms of my playing career as well. But then I sat down with my boss in the summer of that year. We did my appraisal, which is where they look at your basically your performance throughout the year and what you
Right.
can improve on and so forth. And I put in there how I pretty much downplay my knowledge based on where I played compared to the academy. And he said, "You're silly for that. Like you've got so much to bring based on where you played." Like, he put it this way: being the professional game and non-league game is no different because the aspect of the game is still the same. The aspect is you need to go out there and win the game of football.
Right.
Which at non-league level, yes, the quality is going to be different, of course, but the willingness and the drive to win games and knowing how to win those games is the exact same. And it took me for him to say that to me, and then sit back and think, okay, wow, like hold on, I've downplayed it quite a bit. So especially when the under 18 players they go out on loan, so that's where they get the opportunity to go and get some first team experience somewhere else. They'll play a couple divisions down, so they play a couple leagues down, but they get an opportunity to be exposed to first team football. And where do they end up? They end up playing the level that I play at.
Right.
So this is where I've said to myself, right, so okay, so the knowledge I do have is very relevant. So yeah, so this is where I thought, okay, yeah, what I know isn't exactly incorrect. It's exactly what they need to know. So from there on, my coaching game from that perspective, in terms of knowing what I'm talking about is real, relevant, and it does help the players. My confidence through that went through the roof, knowing that I'm not teaching them something that is going to be no use to them whatsoever when it is very, very useful.
No, absolutely, and that makes a ton of sense. I guess now what I'm wondering is, as far as like you're talking about that, like using your experience, do you think that you were able to pull more from the non-league, or maybe pull more from the time? Obviously, less time, but the time playing internationally and different things like that. What do you think you're able to transfer more?
I think I got into the game, well, in terms of the coaching game at professional level at the right time,
Okay.
based on the fact I've had enough experiences to allow myself to not feel that, how can I put it? Usually, anyone can coach. Let's be honest. Anyone can put on any sort of practice and being able to get kids to do a practice. But everybody has their little, maybe personalities, I guess,
Yeah.
that they can bring to the table that makes everybody different,
Of
every
course.
individual coach different. And I think that my experiences allowed me to be different to other coaches. Not just the fact that I've played, but I can draw experiences of where I know myself that, okay, you know what, when I've been in those situations, I know exactly what that feels like, because that's something that might have maybe made me less confident or something that made me extremely confident. It allows me to, one, bring what I am like as a player involved. So teaching those kids about, okay, in certain situations, you need to be able to back yourself. I'm someone that I have to be a high believer. I've actually found myself in the last couple of years, I said to myself, if I'm not talking rubbish on the pitch to everybody when I'm playing, I'm probably not having a good game. If I'm staying quiet, I'm not having a good game. If I'm there chatting rubbish the whole game, then I'm probably on top of it and I feel like I'm in full control. So bringing those sort of aspects to those players and saying, you know what, as a defender, bring this to the team
Yeah.
because this is what it does to strikers. As an example, I grew up knowing when I was a centre forward as a kid, if I heard a defender always talking, immediately I'm scared. Oh my god, I don't want to play against him because he just sounds strong, but he's always talking, he's always giving something. So I feel that my experiences in particular have definitely given me maybe a lot more comfortability. Not to say that it's the correct way, but I just think it gives my edge in terms of what I can possibly bring to the table. And I think that's what's quite good about our workforce, in particular. We all come from different aspects, so we all have something to bring to the table. No two coaches are the same within our club at the moment, which is good. And yeah, so it definitely gives me an opportunity to draft on those experiences and then again bring it on to the next generation, which is what I use my teaching for as well. It's all about my previous experiences. So yeah, I use that a lot in terms of when I teach and coach.
And that actually bleeds right into the question I had is like how much are you using your playing, your coaching when you are doing the actual teaching of the kids? Obviously that, the educating these kids and preparing them honestly, for life without football, how much are you using all of the playing in that?
Um, yeah, it's pretty much every single step of the way.
Yeah.
And again, not even just the playing side, also to do with just life in general.
Right.
Again, growing up in one of the roughest areas that can be,
Yeah.
there's so much experiences you can bring from that. And I think that is what made me want to teach in the first place. I think being able to give back and being in a position where I think coaching allows you to teach too, because coaching is teaching. It
Yeah.
is a form of teaching. So there's a lot of transferable skills, which you then say, okay, when you're in the classroom, you can obviously put together and then enhance that throughout your experience when you're teaching. And I just find that with me, I think I find myself in a position where I'm not always great, but I'm very honest. That's whether I'm in the classroom or on the pitch. Very, very honest. And I think the reason why is that these kids are growing up. I mean, don't get me wrong, you don't want to break anyone's heart. So there is levels to obviously how honest you can be.
Of course.
But at the same time, honesty sets them up for life. Because if you're sitting there saying you're going to be a footballer when you know wholeheartedly that that kid has absolutely no chance, there's such a disservice there. You know what I mean? So I would never tell a person you're never going to make it in football.
Right.
I would just always explain to them about the options that they need to have as people. And I guess the reason why I'm so maybe big on that is because I wasn't the person that wanted to give myself options. I wanted to be that person that football was the only thing I needed.
Yeah.
I didn't do too well in school in terms of grades, not because I couldn't complete it or I wasn't smart. I just saw it as whatever. Like, I'm going to school because I have to.
Yep.
I'll do what I can do to get by, but I'm not going to push myself to succeed. And I think me going through that experience now allows me to then help those that aren't pushing themselves right now, because at least they can say, "How are you going to tell me what to do when you don't know what it's like to be in my position when my grades aren't great?" Well, then I can say, well, on the flip side, yeah, mine weren't great actually. Mine was as bad as yours. So then I can tell them how that feels and what that made me feel like when I got mine. So yeah, I just think it's important for me. I think I love drawing on real life experiences, even though they do say to some degree you're not supposed to, or you're giving too much of yourself away. And I'm not really bothered by that because I'm not ashamed of my journey.
Yeah.
So I know someone's going to take a lot more from me giving them something real rather than something that maybe a book has told me to tell them.
Yeah.
So I keep away from the textbook stuff, keep it as real as possibly can be, because you learn a lot more from that compared to the textbook, 100%. So, you learn how to drive quicker when you're in the car rather than watching a video on YouTube, or rather than sitting in front of the theory test, looking at it, thinking, okay, this is how you drive. No, you have to go out there and do these things and learn from those real life experiences. So, yeah, I'm very big on then transferring those skills over to players and getting them ready for the next step for sure.
No, absolutely, and it makes me kind of think about like getting into coaching, and it's kind of a similar journey. I think for me is like obviously the biggest thing is I want to stay in the game. I love the game. I put basically all my time into playing. Very similar to kind of what you're talking about is like my grades not great. Because just not because I couldn't do it, because I just didn't want to really put any more effort into it. But I think about like, in all respect to the coaches that I had, but I do think back, it's like, like here it's kind of dads just helping out teams and stuff like that.
Yep,
And I'm like,
yep.
And I think back about some of the early on coaches that I had, and like mad respect for them doing their thing, volunteering and all that. But I'm like, if I had the coaching that I give my players now, like where could I have been? And it's like I want to make sure that we progress the game in like on all aspects, not just playing, but like coaching and different things like that in the area, because I'm coaching in the area that I grew up in and different things like that. And so like, I think it's kind of a similar way where like you go through these experiences and you're like, oh, that wasn't like, regardless of like how you made it out, like that experience could have been better for me. So
100%.
I got to try to make it better for them. And it's the same idea, right? Like I'm very honest with my players. Like I was going to school to play, right? Like that's why I went to college. I went to university just to play football. I got hurt, and then it wasn't there anymore, right? So it's like, what do I do? And now I made a decision that like I had to make for myself, and I was going to school, I was doing fine. Like grades, school was pretty easy when I when I only had to focus on it, to be fair. But
Mm,
I,
mm.
I ended up dropping out of college to coach.
Okay.
And so like when I have these, I have to have these honest like conversations because I coach U17 girls.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty easy for one of them to be like, well, you dropped out of college. It's like, yeah, but I also had a plan about how I was going to do it.
Mm,
You know what I mean? And so
mm,
like you got to I think that like anyone who tries to like go against using your own experience, it just doesn't make any sense. I think it's the only way that you can be relatable to a person, and if you're not relatable, they really don't have any time for you. So like me dropping out of college, they're like, "Oh, you've actually felt way worse about school than I ever did." Clearly. And it's like,
yeah.
yeah.
100%.
And so it's like I was there, but I also was getting 3.9s in school like before I
Mm,
dropped out. So I wasn't doing poorly. I didn't drop out because I couldn't do it. I had a plan, and so it's like I'm able to use that and say, hey, there's if this game isn't for you, if you're not wanting to coach or anything like that, you just got to keep going through school and you got to find what your passion is. I was able to find that without college, and so I'm fortunate in that way, but you have to kind of find your own path and different things, and that's my experience that I can kind of lend itself to my players and stuff. So I think that for me, I'm on the same page as you, where it's like I have to use my experiences. I have to use like what I know rather than what I'm taught or what's taught in a book or anything like that, for sure.
100%.
Um, I do want to get into the education, really, like the role that you have as the head of academy education. For those who don't exactly know what your role is or what your job is, just explain that a little bit.
So, head of academy education is something that's employed in all clubs. So,
Yep.
all professional clubs have them. So, it's basically the person that looks after, as obviously is in the title, education side of all the players.
Right.
So, all players go to school as they're expected to. So, in the schoolboy program, some of them will get pulled out of school. It could be because it may be a game in the evening that's far away. They might come play with the upper age groups. So the head of education is someone that one may have to do some one-to-one teaching with that kid,
Okay.
just in case they have to get pulled out of school, timetabling, and that sort of stuff. We also have to collect player reports. So we have to go and collect all their school reports from their school, manage to see what's going on. So if there's any of the players that are not doing too well in school, I'm then expected to then go in and then speak to the school, see what we can do from a club's perspective to then support them, support the player to get them through school. Because you want their journey to be as good as it can be, because it'll just set them free as they get older. Obviously, at this particular point, they're not to know that. Um, and yeah, so it's pretty much that sort of remit. For me, I'm kind of branching not away from it, but expanding it now. I'm looking into a lot deeper things. So workshops are also the part that's included. So you expect to maybe put on some form of workshop for the boys, whether it's life skills, it could be things for the parents as well to learn, because there's obviously stuff for the parents to still learn, especially in the younger age groups. You know, everyone wants their kid to do well. Everyone wants their kid to play in a certain position.
For
It
sure.
may not be the position for them, so there's still stuff that parents have to learn. So yeah, it's just giving them external workshops that they can then have to expand their skills, whether it's life skills, football stuff where it's theory based, and yeah, just expanding the knowledge where possible. But where I'm taking mine to the next level is I'm going a lot deeper with my life skill sessions. There's a lot of life skill sessions that's out there for the players to use, and don't get me wrong, a lot of it's relatively pretty good. Um, but I tend to do a lot of stuff in house. I think again, drawing from those experiences
Right.
in particular as well. Anything that I know I can't cover in terms of my knowledge on it isn't great. This is where, yeah, externally, let me go and find someone that knows this stuff. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of things that are outside the box. So a lot of my external stuff, I've actually spoke to a lot of clubs and look, if you want me to deliver this stuff, I'm happy to do so. I'm looking at stuff at the moment where looking at social media and how they use their social medias and being careful what they post and stuff like that. You've probably seen a lot of incidences where players have said things they shouldn't say and getting in trouble for it. And I don't think, from what I know anyway, to my knowledge, not a lot of that is going around clubs at the minute in terms of educating players about those things. Because I think if there were, players would be doing it.
Right.
Simple as, I think. So I've gone a long way in terms of getting my boys focused and looking at that. So look, you guys are destined to be footballers. That's what you're focused on. So start thinking like one. Start thinking like a public figure. Yeah. So you can't be using your social media for the things that you would use them for just as a teenager. So I've taught them stuff like, you know what? It's okay to have two accounts. One for you and your friends on private. That way you can post whatever you want. It's the people you trust. Then the other one just for the public eye, because people want to drag you down. As soon as they find something against you, they're going to drag you for it. So it's teaching them stuff like that. We're looking into racism in a deeper scale. I've looked at them again, preparing them for non-league, so when they go out on loan. So one thing that the boys tend to do, I found a habit in particular, when they go out on loan, they tend to see themselves as people that are royalty.
Right.
So they expect their non-league clubs or the club they've gone to, because it's a smaller club, they expect them to roll the red carpet out for them. That's what they're thinking. So it's just teaching them that, well, no, you are still a nobody player. You haven't got any appearances to your name yet. You're a youth player at a club, professional club, yes. Okay, you're in a good position. But if we're to ask about how many times have you played in the FA Cup, how many times you played in the League Cup, how many times you played in the senior team, you've got nothing to your name. So
Right.
therefore, in the senior game, you've got nothing. You're a nobody. Yeah. So don't look at these clubs as you're bigger and better than them. And once you show them that side of things and knowing that, hold on, non-league works. Going out on loan works. Your England captain played for the club you're at right now, Leighton Orient. He came on loan here. So imagine he had the same mentality you have when you go to your non-league club. He probably wouldn't be the England captain right now.
Right.
But he's had to take a step down to go forward. So when they start looking at things like that, all of a sudden they're eager to go out on loan because they're realizing now, okay, I need to get first team experience. How can I expect to be in the first team of Leighton Orient if I haven't got any first team experience at all? I can't expect it to happen, which is true. So all of a sudden now, yeah, I want to go out on loan. I want to really go and do this rather than, oh, I'm going to this club. I'm from Leighton Orient. Please roll that red carpet out because I am royalty. No, it's really giving them a different perspective. Again, just off of me, not one, knowing non-league, knowing what it's about, and being able to pitch it to them as well. So that's helped. So yeah, I'm very big on improving them guidance-wise, so preparing them for real life. So each player at the end of the under 18s, they're going to get their decisions. They're going to know whether they're going to be at the club, if they're going to give them a professional deal or not. So I'll set them straight. So sit them down. Say, look, let's start looking at ratios. Let's start looking at protecting yourself. What are you going to do if the club say no? I mean, I hope they take all of you. Realistically, probably not. Yeah, let's be honest. But what are you going to do next? What are your options? So we've looked at possibly scholarships in America. So we've looked at stuff like that. We looked at obviously going to university in England and the scholarships in the UK. We've looked at non-league options. We've looked at options at other clubs. Because just because you're not maybe the player that the club want here, doesn't mean Cambridge United are not looking for that. Doesn't mean Southend United are not looking for that. Doesn't mean Arsenal are not. Yeah, so it's just obviously luck of the draw in terms of where you are. But it's all about protecting them and giving them those options.
Right.
And most boys will just sit there and say, yeah, it's just football. Just the same way I would have done it. So I get their hustle. I completely understand it. So they're going to go around thinking, I'm going to make it, so it's fine. But yeah, but what happens if you don't? Yeah, so what's happening next for you? So what are you going to then line up to know you have options? So the moment you go in for that decision meeting, if you don't hear what you want to hear, can you leave there at least say, okay, that's fine. I've got options now. Yeah, so it's that. Because I know that particular, I mean, I couldn't be in their environment. Being around them now and knowing the pressures that they're really under, I don't think I would have been able to cope at their age. I mean, my heart would have been in the right place. I would have tried very hard, but that's a lot of pressure. Because I would have put pressure on myself. Like, oh my God, if my decisions come in, what if they break my heart? Because
Right.
effectively, especially for some of those boys, that's what it's going to be. You can imagine players from all across the country that have been at clubs since they were 9. 18 comes, now it's decision time. That's your whole life. Your whole footballing life's been at this one club. And it could be the end. And it's, what do you do with players like that? So I go out of my way now, especially when players have now left the club where they haven't got the decision they wanted. They now have moved on to their next club or their next adventure. I try my hardest to stay in touch and see what they're doing. Because again, that's something in the game that doesn't happen enough.
Right.
Players are just kind of spat out and do what you want to do. You know, it's a dog eat dog world. It can be a very harsh world. And I sat down with my boss, my director of football at the club, just on Friday, actually, and we discussed about wanting to be better around our players and really showing them about protecting themselves and making them better human beings before they move on to the next adventure. Not just thinking as we've done with you now, you just go into the real world and deal with it. So we're very big on trying to stay in touch and knowing their journeys, knowing what they do next, because I can't imagine what it's like to be 9, ending up 18, and what you've known your whole life is now going to change. it probably is a very difficult situation to be in. So
Yeah.
we're trying our hardest to make sure that, yeah, especially me from an education perspective, I'm trying my hardest to try and bridge that gap and just preparing them for that next step because it's so important to them as human beings. Take the football aside, human beings, and that's what I'm very big on, educating the human. So it's something I'm really working on, and I'm really trying to make sure that not just nailing it here, but giving insight so that other clubs can also, we need to do this too. So it's
Yeah.
not just about protecting my boys here; it's about the boys across the country because they all need it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, I think uh, obviously if you're doing it as a baseline thing, it kind of lends itself to the situation we're in right now, where I think it's pretty easy for a lot of the kids to feel kind of like they've been left alone because it's like you're talking about something they've known their whole life, and then literally it's completely changed, and that's kind of where we're at right now, where kids have, I mean, to be fair, everyone, because none of us have ever dealt with anything like this, but um, you have these kids, especially who probably haven't developed the maybe as good of coping mechanisms or whatever it is as maybe as us as adults and different things like that, and now they're dealing with feeling kind of probably alone, where I think a lot of clubs, academies, different things, not just in the UK but in the United States, all over the world, these kids probably, because everything's shut down and they're not seeing their friends, they're not seeing their coaches as much. They're feeling very alone right now,
Definitely.
and so you can imagine, like, this is kind of, obviously we're hoping things get back to normal, which will make this kind of a microcosm of what you're talking about. But imagine, like, at least there's a light, right? Like, we're gonna go play football again after restrictions are lifted and stuff. But these kids that, like you're saying, from 9 to 18 lose that, the thing that they've known all their life. There isn't really a light at the end of the tunnel for some of them, at least in their perspective. Because an 18-year-old kid, like, when your world's kind of crushed a little bit, you're not looking for the silver lining. You're just crushed. And so
Definitely.
I think it's amazing.
Definitely. But what's it like on your end? So when it comes to, because I know a little bit in terms of what football's like over in America, but what is the actual structure in terms of progression into the professional game, getting to the MLS, or is it USL? Is that the other league?
There is USL, yep. There
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
other
Cool.
smaller, like, professional kind of professional leagues. Obviously, our structure is quite poor in that way. Where, I mean, there is no promotion, relegation, or anything. There is no real ability to move up with a team or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. But I guess so. The progression kind of looks like this. I mean, obviously there's thousands of clubs, youth clubs, and different things around the country. There are also, and within that, there are kind of tiered systems a little bit of, like, there are very local clubs that, the way I describe it, and obviously it's not actually viewed this way, but the way that I always kind of, when I'm talking to a parent, because and I can get into that in a little bit, but one of the worst things is how poorly we educate parents about everything that's offered, and I imagine it's probably similar there as well. But there are what I would call local clubs, and they're kind of tier one, where they want to, like, help kids. They want, it's usually very, very low cost. They're gonna kind of develop kids enough to where, like, they can probably make, like, their high school team or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of give them a pathway to play. Then the next is kind of that intermediate, where, like, you start to step up. You're a little bit more competitive. You're competing statewide and different things a little bit, and you're probably getting them to be, like, a varsity player on their high school team, like a starter.
Mm-hmm.
You're much more competitive. You might be able to get into college or whatever that way a little bit, and then I think there's, like, the very competitive clubs, where, and that's a club that I like, the club I work at, where your development is from top to bottom. But you're also competing from top to bottom, statewide, uh, nationwide, a little bit, regionally, different
Okay.
things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
our push is to really, like, to get kids, as many kids, into college as we possibly can. And so, like, that's kind of, I would say, the tier system. But even within that, there's, like, upper echelons of those clubs, and that's kind of where you have to be to go play at, like, um, to be like very much noticed early on by like an MLS academy and stuff like that. It's very difficult
Okay.
to be at like a really small club and get noticed.
Right.
And obviously, a lot of it has to do with the vast size of the country and different things like that. So,
Of
like
course.
the scouting is not great, and it's not,
Mm.
and I don't have an answer for it because it is so big. There isn't. They're just. I guess. Long story short, is like there isn't a clean pathway, from
Okay.
that to that. Right? There's because there isn't promotion relegation. What that does is it doesn't provide many professional opportunities in America, and when there's not
Okay.
many professional opportunities, it's really competitive at the top, right? Because
Hmm.
you only have so many spots. If you
Yeah.
have
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right, like if you have 20 teams at the top level and you have 30 people on each team, like that's not very many people that are being playing professionally. And obviously there's
100%.
more than that, but it's very tough for kids to have a real opportunity to play like that, like non-league and stuff like that. That doesn't exist. It's you
Doesn't
either
exist. Okay.
your opportunity. You can play in college. Most people don't make pro. And then honestly, unfortunately, what like the culture that we have right now is, I think, not everywhere, but I would say more people just kind of stop playing than continue. Like myself and my group of friends and like people I'm around, we do what's called men's league, which is probably like five-a-side or like a Sunday league. That's probably the
Yeah.
equivalent.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the amount of people that do that is not very high. So
Wow. Okay.
yeah, it's quite low, unfortunately.
What would you say? What's the one thing would you say within the American system that needs to be fixed? Probably maybe not fixed, but needs to be addressed immediately for you.
Accessibility. It's too expensive.
Okay.
Travel so
Really?
and
Okay. I can imagine. Yeah.
look, I'm almost a hypocrite in this. In like I get paid because of a club that you pay good money for.
Yeah.
Um, but like even I think that so many kids get left out in those opportunities.
Mm.
And so not just because it's expensive, but it kind of goes to what I'm talking about because of the accessibility of one, it's expensive to start like early, like at any point for the most part, but also the accessibility of having a bunch of opportunities it just isn't there. Collegiately, it is, but it's only 4 years, right? Like,
Okay.
so you're
Yeah. Yeah.
telling
Yeah.
me that you're telling these kids that they've worked from most kids start at 4 years old, they go till 18, right? Like that's a long time, and then
100%.
until they're 22, and then their soccer life's done. So the rest of their life, they just have to maybe they're fans and they watch and they can't play, right? Like I'm 26, you're going to be 26, you're 30, right? Like if someone said that your soccer like you can't play any more like soccer or football after 22, like that's devastating. And I think that would be the biggest thing is like just making things more accessible, whether that's opening up more leagues, opening up more professional leagues, making it less expensive, so you get
Hmm.
more people in loving the game. So then these like I said, like these Sunday league
Yeah.
teams
Yeah. Yeah.
open up more, whatever it is. Like that's the culture that I want us to build. That is just more
Mm.
accessible, where you have people playing longer.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
So with that, so what's that like in compared to the popular sports within the country? So your basketballs, your American football. What's it like in terms of the accessibility for those sports?
Uh, oh, those are way cheaper. I mean,
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah.
basketball is way cheaper, which is why we're so good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just because they put it so like in the UK, like there are like places where you can go play five-a-side that just popped up. Like there's goals and different things like that. We
Mm.
have basketball courts, and I know you do as well, but like they're everywhere. Every city has at least
Okay.
one, two basketball courts, and you go play. And you go look
Yeah.
in any rec league; those things are filled up with basketball teams. It's not the same
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
for football here. But like
Okay.
American football, I mean, I would say probably the brutality of the sport kind of doesn't lend itself to playing much after. But I would say that football players, because there are so many people on a team, it is the one sport where you see the most people like believing they're going to be pro because there's so
Right.
many more
Okay.
opportunities. And there are other opportunities. There's like semi-pro teams and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Football's a little bit, I think, is just a little bit different because you can't, like, unless you're Tom Brady, right? Like, you can't really play into like older ages and stuff. And people still will play. They'll play like at like family get-togethers and different things like that because it's like tradition.
Mhm.
But basketball is like the greatest example where like you have people playing forever because all you need is a ball and a hoop, and that's it, right? And so,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and that's pretty easy. And granted, all you need is a ball and goals, but we don't just have goals. Like, I mean, like there's a lot of facilities like clubs and stuff. They don't allow, they don't want people to go onto their facilities to use like their
Okay.
fields and stuff because, and like they don't want them to get tore up and different things like that. And like
Mhm.
I can understand like like from that perspective, but it's like it doesn't lend itself to people like just freely playing. You don't see that enough.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
makes sense. Have you visited England at all?
I haven't. That's it's, I
Haven't.
I very much want to, and obviously even more so after talking to you and just a lot of the other guests that I've had on, like that are like, yeah,
Yeah.
you got to get here, you got to get here. No, I definitely do. I want to Europe in general, but I definitely want to come to the UK for sure. So I do want to talk a little bit more about just the kind of the roles that we play as coaches, and I think that was kind of one of the big topics that you wanted to touch on, right? Like the role that we have in these, especially in the youth game, right? Like obviously professionally you have a role, but in the youth game, like I think we have a responsibility that a lot of coaches don't always realize, and outsiders don't realize the responsibility we have to the players, not just on the field but off the field, to really um, make sure that we're setting them up to be good people, like you've talked about. And I think some good examples of when the the pieces aren't in place around these players, no matter how talented they are, can go awry. Like I think in obviously the biggest examples are like Ravel Morrison and Niles
Mhm.
Ranger, right? Like those are
Mhm.
pretty prominent figures right now where you've seen that where like super talented, but like you, it was pretty obvious that they didn't have enough of the right people surrounding them. And so like that kind of stuff can happen where like doesn't matter how talented you are, you can fall into these pitfalls or and like make these choices that negatively impact your life if you don't have people pushing you to make those good decisions, stop you from kind of failing yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what how do you view yourself in that aspect, or just coaches in general from that standpoint?
I think it's difficult. I think it also there's so much variables as to why it's important for coaches to look at these things. But at the same time, some coaches can't.
Yeah.
It could be because of it could be age, it could be experience, it could be what they're exposed to in terms of where their club is geographically. There's so many different variables. But I've always said if you're a coach that coaches in the very poor, very deprived areas, so Leighton Orient as an example is in a deprived area, so is West Ham. Um, and parts of obviously Manchester as well, hence where you have that Ravel Morrisons. I've always said that if you coach in those sort of clubs and you have those sort of difficult players in terms of maybe life skills, coaching them, there's absolutely no coaching badge that can coach you that can tell you how to coach those players.
Right.
That is just something you learn based on experience, being in it and trying to understand them and being open about it. Because you have a lot of people. I mean, I'll tell you exactly what the culture is like over here. So, I mean, I've personally someone that had this sort of mentality as well. When a player doesn't do well, i.e., your Ravel Morrisons and now Rangers, we just look at them and say, "Oh, you're an idiot.
Right.
Like, you're so talented. You have all this money. Why can't you just go to training? Why can't you do this?" Because we know if we was in their position, we'll go and do what they're not doing. Yeah, but we never look at them as human beings. You look at them as robots because we know the money's involved. We're thinking, yeah, why can't they just go to training? Or they just don't care, etc., etc. Without ever looking at the human and the issues. And I think being again in the pro game has made me realize that hold on, wait, these boys are under so much pressure to mature and mature very quickly that we forget. that they are kids.
Yeah.
So me being at Leyton Orient, when I first came into touch with the club, obviously I was the college teacher, the maturity of those 17, 18-year-olds compared to the 17, 18-year-olds I usually deal with, the gap is so big. Those boys are so mature because they're forced to. They've got no choice because of the field they want to be in. If they can't get their places on time, get things done, not upset people, do the jobs, etc., they're not going to be in the profession they want to be in. But the only way they'll be able to get away from being in control of their life skills or having those life skills and being able to be a pro, they have to be extremely talented. And I've explained this to them about Ravel Morrison's and Nile Ranger. I said, look, do you know why Nile Ranger gets so many chances? I said, he has to be so good at the game.
Yeah.
Because I know, for instance, a club takes me on as an example. If I'm being a nuisance, they're going to get rid of me because there's probably 20,000 of me.
Right.
Yeah, they'll find someone that will replace me and no problem. Nile Ranger, for him to get all the chances he's had and all the issues, and I don't know if you ever listened to any of his podcasts, it is ridiculous the amount of issues this boy's been involved in. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
like clubs gave you chance after chance after chance, and even the big clubs did that. Newcastle United and managers knowing that you've got these issues and they still pick you no matter what. You have to be good. You must have something that is making them turn a blind eye to it. And that's the reason why I said I put a tweet out saying football failed him. The moment I looked at his stat, I was looking at his career and I looked at you played for England at under 19s, where you've been out of prison, in and out of prison a bit. You're always late to training. You've gone and stole kit from your academy club. You've done all sorts, and they're still picking you. That means your life skills don't mean anything. It means you're just an asset because you're good on the pitch. They're happy to look past that. And you're representing the nation. You would think that if it's the nation, they're not going to tolerate that. They want
Yeah.
the best kids. They can play the game, but also very good people too. They're not interested in that. So then you ask yourself, if I'm now Ranger now, why am I going to work hard on changing my life skills if the nation are still going to pick me? For me, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you? I mean, yes, a decent person would say, okay, you know what, let me change because I'm grateful, etc. But if you're someone that finds it difficult and yet they're telling you to change something, but they're going to pick you anyway, realistically, what is the chances of you doing that? It's very low.
Yeah.
You're going to
Absolutely.
have to hit rock bottom and have nothing before you probably do that. And that's when I said, yeah, the game's failing players. This is why Ravel Morrison hasn't reached maybe his potential because he's had his life skills issues that he's had. I mean, I haven't even watched his podcast to know what he's actually been through. The reason why I haven't watched it is because I don't feel like I need to, because I pretty much know what he's probably going to come out with anyway. But the kid, again, I watched him play for Jamaica. I watched a couple of his clips, and I'm like, this guy, again, if he's nurtured in the right way, who knows who he could have been? We have no idea. He's that talented.
Yeah. So
Um,
I guess then so maybe is it then more so to do with like not necessarily the coaches like full responsibility because obviously the coaches can only extend themselves so much, right? They're in charge of all these
100%.
kids.
Yep.
So maybe it's one the culture has to change in terms of
Yep.
like how we do things, and then it's more so the club has to create a structure that nurtures these players in a better way where it makes it
Definitely.
easier for a coach to help like when they see a player needs more help than others, right? Clearly clearly they needed more help. Like those guys needed
Yeah.
more help. Like absolutely. So yeah, so maybe it's not a coach thing where it is actually more probably starts from the top. It's just a cultural thing and then a structural thing from the club standpoint for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Because again, with coaches, it's like you're a coach, and it's not just that one player you've got to look after. You
Yeah.
could have 15, 16, 20. Yeah. So it is difficult. I mean, in your grassroots clubs, this is why I always say when you're coaching junior level as just a voluntary coach, you are probably the most skilled because there's so much things you have to deal with without how can I put it, without the support from others. You're having to tap into so many different avenues of the game to help these kids basically allow them to play. You're going to have to play physio, you're going to play coach, you're going to play the manager, you're going to play the water boy. You're going to play so many different roles that when you go into the professional game, a lot of this stuff's looked after already. So you could just focus on getting on the grass, putting on your practices, making them better footballers, and that's it. And when you're a coach at a grassroots level, there's so much you have to tap into. It takes you away from the coaching becomes pretty much the last thing you pretty much do because there's so much other things you have to look after. Encouraging them to get on time, encouraging them to pack stuff away at the end, There's so much little things you have to tap into that maybe your skills as a coach isn't exactly it's being exposed, of course, because you're obviously being able to adapt, but you ain't able to just focus on just the coaching element because you have to tap into so much. So yeah, especially when it comes to bigger clubs, I think there's definitely a role for mentors. It's needed.
Mm-hmm.
The outside world, so fans, us that are fans of the game, when we look at players, we look at them, we just expect them to deliver. Because of course we pay money, we pay a lot of people pay good money to go watch their teams play. You expect them to play, of course. And again, when you do that, you straight away take away from the fact that these guys are human. We forget that. And I think where I came into context of understanding that point is, again, having a family member of my own who's a professional footballer, or ex
Right.
now. So I remember the first time I spoke to him, I used to speak to him via text. So, at this point, it's still not surreal to me. I'm about 15, 16. So I'm like, the guy's my hero. I've
Right.
looked up to him, as you can imagine. And texting him back and forth about football, etc. And one time he said he's going to call me, and I panicked. Like, he's calling me, like my hero, the person I see on my TV, posters in my room, and see him in the newspapers. He's going to call me. I'm like, oh my god! And he picks up the phone, phones me. First 10 seconds, I was a bit starstruck, but then after those 10 seconds, it immediately hit me. I'm not talking to Emil Heskey, who wears number 9 on the back of his shirt. I'm talking to Emil Heskey, the human being.
Right.
He's a human, just like me. Yes, he might earn X amount of money, but he's a human being just like me. And when I used to watch, and this is how I became a fan of Aston Villa, when he ended up at Aston Villa, that's when I first came into touch of watching games live, so going to stadiums and watching matches.
Okay.
So I went to his games at Aston Villa, and he used to give me players' lounge tickets, so you were able to go into the players' lounge, meet all the players at the end of the game and stuff like that. So I watched Villa versus Liverpool. It was Ashley Young's last game for the club that day, and meeting him, I said, Ashley Young, so what's going on? Are you going to Man United? And he grinned. He's like, yeah, we'll see, we'll see. So from then I knew it was a done deal. As much as the media, so again, the media telling us, oh, there's speculation about this, speculation about that. I knew it was done just by speaking to him. I know when he goes on camera, yeah, he's just going to turn up and have a straight face and explain it the way he's supposed to explain it as a professional. But I spoke to the human being. He told me, yeah, we'll see. So I knew
Right.
what time it was. And I met so many players during that period of going to Villa matches. And Alan Hutton, who else did I meet? Richard Dunn, Stan Petrov, who I now am in touch with quite a lot through his organisation at the moment. Who else did I meet? Fabian Delph, Mark Albrighton. A lot of them will come and say hello to me. They don't know who the hell I am. Then I realise again that they're human beings. They're not just these, oh wow, big millionaires that earn X amount of thousands a week. They're human beings. And when you go and then see on Twitter how they're getting slated for this, slated for that, you understand it, of course. It's just the nature of the game, but it's a human being you're talking to at the end of the day, and we really, really forget that sometimes, all because we see money and expect people to change their behaviour. Now, you and I can go and get a new job tomorrow that's offering us £30,000 or $30,000 more, and of course, yeah, straight away our life skills are going to change. We're going to start working a lot harder. We're going to start getting in on time and never being late. But after maybe a month, 2 months, when it becomes normal to us, our normal behaviour will resume.
Yeah.
Simply because that lifestyle now is normal. So it's the same for those players that are going through that. Okay, I've got my professional deal now. Yes, they want me to behave. They want me to be on time. They're probably going to be on time at first because wow, they're getting this huge chunk of money. Probably happened to Niall Ranger. You've seen the amount of money Newcastle are going to play him, and he's thinking, okay, cool. Right now, I'll turn up on time. But once that becomes your normality, your normal behavior resumes, and this is where the mentoring it should never really stop. There's always levels to being mentored. So, yes, some players will have it within their families where they're looked after in that sense. Emil's always said he was always looked after in that sense in terms of our family looking after him. But the only issue he had was didn't know what he wanted to do when he finished.
Right.
Whereas a lot of players get into that position where they've earned all their millions, but what do I do now? And a lot of them become stuck. And that's why him and Stan Petrov and a couple of other ex-pros have now got this organization called Player for Player. You might have seen on Twitter, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So it's a new organization looking at mentoring players into one being human beings and guiding them through their career, giving them help with how they manage their finances, how they manage with new contracts and dealing with the off the field stuff that they didn't particularly deal with well when they were players. So I just think it's important for us to start looking at players as humans and don't just label them he's a waste of talent. Oh, football's done enough. The sad thing is, unless you're in the game, you actually don't know what's been done.
No,
I mean, that's the sad thing.
No, absolutely. I think that there needs to, like I know for me that I catch myself forgetting, right? Like I I coach all the way down like to 7 years old for travel. For my travel teams, I coach younger than that as well because I run our like junior nationals, which is like a programs and whatnot. But like I like 2012 girls, like that's the birth year, and like I catch myself forgetting like I'm getting caught up because like we're training and like it's supposed to be competitive or whatever, and but it's like they're 8. It's easy to
Yeah,
forget those
definitely.
things, you know what I mean? And then I have to think about it, it's like I'm coaching, U17 girls, so I have 16-year-olds, some they'll be 17 or whatever, but
Yeah,
they're 16.
yeah,
They have other things going on in their lives. I'm like, it's not just this. And so like when you think about it like that, it's like every single level of this, no matter what, these people are dealing with everyone's dealing with different things and have all kinds of different things going on. I was just talking about uh, Mason Greenwood the other day, right? Like,
yeah,
people are, oh, he's not actually going to be this amazing player that everyone thought. He's not going to be this world class talent. It's like you have no idea, like especially if you're not like a fan, like the guy one obviously had the England issue, and like that's on him. He's got to own that, and I think I
mhm,
think he did for the most part. But like most people don't even realize that like his best friend committed suicide. This is a 19-year-old
mhm,
kid dealing with that. I'm
yeah,
25. I'm not dealing with that well.
yeah,
And so like he's expected to not only deal with that, but then go and perform at the same level that he did as an 18-year-old, which was incredible, right? Scoring 17 goals for Manchester United.
right.
That's pretty good.
It's impressive.
Yeah, but also improve upon that, or else he's a failure. It's like, guys, like he's a person, like,
Crazy.
and he's dealing with that. Obviously, having like the COVID restrictions and all those things all roped into it. It's like, no, you can like, how would you deal with like? I think we have a trouble saying like, how would you deal with it? Where like you're saying like most people would be like in the Ravel situation like, oh, I would do everything I'm supposed to do. It's like, would you though? Like,
Yeah, would you? Exactly.
what did you make no mistakes at 18 years old in like your like because your education or maybe you had a job, like that was kind of what it was for Ravel. You made no mistakes there, and then they'll probably be like, no, I definitely did. I made a ton. It's like, all right, so then what? Why is there a different expectation just because he's this? And there just shouldn't
100%.
there has to be a disconnect. Of course, there's higher expectations. The better you are, the farther you go. Of course, it's just how
Yeah,
it goes, and they earn that. They also have to deal with that. But yeah, it's like you said, we have to be able to disconnect players from the people they are, because they are footballers, but more so they're people, and they deal with their own things, and you see it on a daily basis, and we have to I think just be more accepting of that and more understanding of that for sure.
yeah, definitely. Again, as soon as they see the money that we've been told that they earn, we automatically see as because you earn this, you're just going to be able to do this, this, and this with no problems. Well, no, because life doesn't work like that for any of us.
Yeah.
Money doesn't make any of us change our life skills immediately.
No.
It's a process thing that has to be managed. You can't expect, again, Ravel Morrison's, Mason Greenwood's, now Rangers to change all the life skills at once. It's a process that they
Yeah.
have to work on. As we know, the older we get, the harder it is to break a habit. We know that. So just us look at it and think, okay, because they've offered you this contract with that amount of money and it's this amount of years, and we're such a big club, so you're just expected to go and do all those things. Okay, you can think that, but again, as you said, disconnect. Is that even possible? Probably not. Without a structure,
Right.
probably not. You can't just expect them to go around, go home after training and sort it out, sleep on it, and then the next day everything's fine. It just doesn't work like that. I'm totally with you on that for sure, man.
No, absolutely. Um, just to move along a little bit, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I think there are some parallels in what we do. As like I said, I'm U17 coach for girls. I have one U17 team, I should say, and then obviously you are coach. And their year, like next year, they're going to be seniors. I'm going to have them as U18s, and you're dealing with that is like finding them, I guess homes, especially, obviously you're in a little bit different situation where sometimes those players move on and they stay in the club,
Mhm.
but those players that are moving on to the next phase of their life or whatever, we kind of both are in that boat of finding them places. Obviously, for me, it's finding them the right home collegiately or helping them go about that way. For you, how realistic is that for you of like getting kids over here to go to college or different things like that, or because you're at Leyton Orient, like you said, where sometimes financially they're not in a situation where they can do that.
Yeah.
Is that difficult?
No, because at the minute, so that you probably are aware, there's a lot of agencies here that help
Right,
with the whole
right.
getting scholarships in America. So there's an organization called League Football Education. So they look after all the players that are basically academy players throughout the whole country. So they're the ones that pretty much put the education structure for each
Okay,
club to then follow. So because they're technically apprentices, so they're people that are technically working because that's what they're doing. Um, they've worked out with one of the organizations. I don't know if you heard of them, First Point USA. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
sure if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
aware of them.
Yep, I've
So
seen that. Yeah.
they've worked out a deal where those players don't have to pay a penny
Oh,
towards them gaining that scholarship.
oh wow.
So usually they're like the middleman. So we'll sort that out for you. You pay us our money, and then we'll sort you your scholarship kind of thing. But with these particular players, they've worked out somehow. Don't know what it is. I don't know the backstory, but they've worked out that they don't have to pay a penny. So they just use them to get to a college in America, and then they get to go. Only problem is with these lot, especially because of the ones that I work with. Again, being from such deprived areas, that's a big switch
Yeah,
from England to America. Not just on the maybe the standard of football or culture of it. You're leaving home for the
yeah,
first time, and you're a teenager. And if you've relied on parents for a lot of things, or always been used to your surroundings, going into a completely different surroundings on a completely different soil, that's a big jump. I mean, even some of them going to the other side of the country to play for a club is difficult in itself. So it is a big jump. But I've always said to them, look, you don't have to go. I'll say just open up your doors. You just don't know what someone might offer you, But obviously, some will take it, some won't. Some are obviously focused on what they think is going to happen, and some obviously have their own journeys planned out.
yeah.
But when I saw that opportunity and they said, yeah, they don't have to pay a penny, I was like, wow, if only I was good enough. If only I had that when I was their age and I was good enough, oh, I would have taken it. But yeah, it's just one of those things. And I just think the system, from what I can see, especially after like watching films and seeing documentaries, the system over in America, especially for the scholarship side, so going to university and being a football player at the same time, looks great. The lifestyle looks amazing compared to what they would have got over here.
Right.
So yeah, I think for those that's ever had the opportunity to do so, pat on the back. But yeah, it's a difficult thing for any teenager to try and take that on, especially if your life skills aren't where they need to be for you to survive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm dealing with that with my kids who aren't gonna go overseas or anything like that. It's just like you need to figure out whether or not you can handle being away from home, like far away from home, right? Like some people are like, yeah, I want to go to. So we're in Michigan, which is top. They want some are like, I want to go to California. I want to go to Florida. It's like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
it's great, right? That weather, that sounds amazing. What happens the first time you don't know how to do something and mom or dad's not there though? Or the
Mm-hmm.
second time, the third time, because like you're on your own. Like, can you handle that, or do you need to find a place that is only a few hours away, or do you need to find a middle ground where it's still accessible for your parents to get to you or help you, or for you to
Mm-hmm.
come home, but you also have that distance that maybe you need to like grow on your own and different things like that, and yeah, finding the right place for a teenager that's turning into like a young adult and stuff. It's not easy, right? Like, because not every kid grows up having to do things for themselves. A lot of kids don't grow up having to do everything for themselves, and so
Yeah.
they don't. That's one thing like that I'm trying to do is like kind of force feed them more responsibilities to take ownership
Yeah.
on themselves, like the O4 girls, which is the U17 team. Like I make them handle all the communication with me and everything like that, like because I'm like, look, you think that a college coach is going to want to talk to your parents if they're having an issue with you? No, they're not going to talk to your parents. They're going to talk to you, and you're going to have to deal with your problems. And like, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to make it to training or whatever it is, you're going to have to talk to like
Yeah.
your manager, your coach. So you might as well start now. And so it is an interesting thing getting these kids ready because and also getting their minds right. Like I tell them all the time, like when you're picking these colleges, it's not about like honestly, I tell them I'm like it's not about the football. It's not even about the education first. It's about are
Mhm.
you going to be able to be there for the next 4 years of your life? Like,
Mhm.
is it going to be an environment where you're comfortable being for the next 4 years? Because I don't care how good the other things are. If you're not,
Yeah.
it's going to probably end poorly. And so, then obviously after that, for my kids, it's education, and then it's football. Like that's just where the level is of, and like what it is in America. Like that just has to be it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because we have to
Yeah.
prepare. If I'm not doing that, then I'm not preparing them beyond the game,
Yeah.
and then I'm doing them
Mhm.
a disservice, right? So, it is interesting to think like there is a little bit of parallels between what we're doing, and so it sounds like it is at least somewhat similar where we're both trying to just prepare these kids to like figure
Yeah.
out,
It's important to us.
figure out what's going to be next, and if the situation they think they want is actually the situation that's best for them.
Definitely. Yeah. So again, I think we have to speak from experience to know that that's important
Yeah,
to have that because our experiences have allowed us to become who we are.
right.
But for some people, those experiences of, as you said earlier on, about being knocked down, that could turn their life upside down.
Yeah,
That could be they can go down a completely different route, all because we didn't decide to make them contact us directly about not coming to training and them being responsible. All those little things. Because then we've grown up, and I'm pretty sure you've been the same, where you look back and thought, I wish I knew that when I was younger. I wish I was taught that
oh yeah,
because I would have been here if I had that. You
yep,
know what I mean? That sort of thing. So I'm big on, I'm only going to give you the tools I wish I had when I was your age.
yeah, absolutely.
You have that now. Who knows where you're going to go with it? If I had that, I know what I probably could have done at your age. So I'm just someone with a bit of experience that's giving you what I wish I had, basically, to set me up and allow me to do what I wanted to do. And with them, I probably could have done it, but I never had it. So it's up to you whether you take it or not. Because at the end of the day, you know this as well. We can't save everybody. You can't make everybody pick up the skills and do what they got to do. Some will have to learn the hard way.
Yep.
Some will take it on and say, "Yes, I'm glad I knew that," and go. It's just everybody's human. Everyone learns in their own way. So as long as we've done our bit and no one can turn around and say when they're 25, 26, Coach Carl never told me that. They can always look back and say, Coach Carl told me that, I wish I'd listened now. You told me by the time I'm 25, if I didn't know how to speak to my manager, this could happen. I wish I took his advice. So at least they can never turn around and say, no one ever told me. And that's what I'm big on with my lot. So listen, you don't have to listen to what I say, but you're not going to walk around as an adult saying, no one ever told me about that. Because I did.
Yeah,
I did try and teach you that. So that's what I tend to go with when it comes to that.
yeah, and I think to parlay off that is something I've been thinking about is like, I think a big reason, like also for making these kids like teaching them these lessons and kind of giving them more responsibility is, I think when we're talking about like everything going on, these kids are dealing with a lot, and if they aren't kind of taught how to handle things on their own, then I don't think they reach out when they actually need help either, because they're kind of afraid to do that, right? Like they're like, well, the expectation is that I like that I'm not supposed to do anything or whatever. So like when like, but if from a young age or from a younger age, you're like, yeah, you gotta like you're teaching them to just handle their situation. I think what comes along with handling something on your own, you also have to teach them how to. Sometimes the answer to handling it is to reach out and ask people for help and different things like that. And I think the best example of that is just like when like emotionally or mentally they're struggling, which there are a lot of people that are doing that right now. And I think you see that we don't breed enough kids to reach out and ask for help and different things, and
Mm.
they struggle on their own, and if we're doing that, then that's truly the biggest disservice that I think we can do to any of these kids is not give them the tools to ask for help.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Especially if any of the kids that you know within your group as well. You start to, again, if you are somebody that cares about it, you start to question that. Did I do enough? Did
Yeah,
I not see any signs? Like, hold on, when they come to training, they seem like everything's fine, and then you don't find out at home life is miserable.
yep,
And you then come into your coaching sessions, your training sessions, is what makes their day, is what makes their week. So imagine that the one day you're annoyed at them because they're 2 minutes late, as an example, not knowing what's going on in the background for them. So for us, as you were saying earlier on about being relatable and as much as some people might say you're like, especially when you get older, you see it with teachers, you see it with coaches as well. They desensitize themselves from players,
Yeah.
so they don't tend to be as involved with them. Yeah, they're coaching them because they're supposed to, of course, but they're not really in terms of knowing what's going on in their lives because they're at that stage now. The less you know, the less stress you have personally. That's what I've worked out. The more we're involved, the more frontline we are, the more stressed we're going to become because we want better for them. And I think again, because we've got youth on our side, I think for me, because I've got it, I'm going to use that.
Yep.
My time to then be desensitized, and probably it is then that time comes, we'll see how I behave then. But right now, because I get it and understand it, I'm going to stay as sensitive to these situations as possible. Because really, reason being is we're trying to shape the next generation.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I think.
and
Go ahead.
yeah. So and when it comes to us being able to, help them and shape them, we've got to try our hardest to do so.
Yeah.
Especially when we have the tools and we know what it's like to be in their position. And again, teaching them about our mistakes and doing better than us.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I think the biggest thing is like, like because like you said, we're young and we haven't desensitized or anything like that. Like it allows us to have that ability to care, and we do care, right? Like so, if you care, like, and you have the ability to do something or help a situation,
Mm-hmm.
there you might as well do it, right? Like because you never know like what that can spur, or what fire that might light in somebody. Like just like the ability to feel like to make people feel like they're cared about is I think is an innate power that we have as coaches, and I think it's something that we should use if we have it for sure.
Definitely. And it's just a shame that it's a thing where it's not necessarily that you do your coaching badges, you're not taught that sort of stuff. You're
No.
just taught about practices.
Yep.
And that's what sets different coaches. The ones that know their practices, which all coaches are expected to do, but those that have that extra in terms of being related and having them interpersonal skills that you're not taught when you're doing your coaching badges. That's the important part to allow
Mm-hmm.
that coaching stuff, the practices, being able to work and for the kids to thrive. So you have both of them, you're onto a winner.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I say this all the time. Like I know I have a long way to go when it comes to like the tactics and different things like that. Like there's and one we all do, right? There's so much. There's so many ways to do things in the game. Luckily, one of my strengths is like I interpersonally I manage those situations really well. Like I can talk to people and different things like that. So, and obviously I need the other half to be very successful in this in the profession of coaching. But I'm happy with having that as a strength, and then we get to work on it. But yeah, I think you're 100% right. Like the top coaches, um, they have both. They have both,
Yeah.
and without a doubt. And not that I want to like skate past this because it's really important, but I think it's a good time to really find out. uh, Obviously, we've talked about like everything you're doing and things like that, but I want to hear what you kind of see for yourself in the future. Obviously, we talked about it, right? 30 years old, you're young in the game. What are those goals that you have as a coach? Like, where do you see yourself? Maybe not. I don't want to do the where do you see yourself in 5 years because I think that changes day to day. But like,
Mhm.
what are you hoping to get out of yourself in the coaching world?
Um, it's been a difficult one in the last couple of years because I'm a qualified teacher and a qualified coach. I can go down either route.
Right.
So I've been a little bit in limbo. Recently I've been thinking, do I even want to coach anymore? Do I want to just focus on education and life skills? Right now, that's at the forefront of my brain. I'm thinking, yeah, rather than doing both, let me maximize in the education side, life skills mentoring. Reason being because there's not much out there at the moment. There's obviously a huge gap in the demand for it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, you know what, I can make a massive impact in that because there's a lot of very good coaches. I'll just be one of the numbers. Whereas the mentoring stuff, because it's brand new, I could be one of the first that's ever done it and basically excelled in it. So I think that's my plan at the moment. So it's just going down that side of really mentoring and really managing these kids' expectations, not just the kids, even the pros, just managing their expectations
Yeah.
and bettering them as people as they go through their career, not just as a sports person, but in their job, because that's exactly what it is, their job career. So that's exactly the sort of role I'm looking at the moment. I'm really looking to push and thrive in.
No, I absolutely I love that because I think way too often people decide to do things because they're like, I think this is like the better route. Like this is the route most people would take. But like for you, it's like I'm more passionate about this. Like this matters more to me. Not that the coaching doesn't matter to you, but like, oh, it matters more, and you're just more passionate about it. And I think if everyone kind of follows that line of thinking, where it's like, what do I feel like? Where do I feel like I can make the biggest impact? And if or that type of thing. What like if I have a success in either one, which do I think I will be happier with? And I think for you, it sounds like, yeah, you can coach and you can have some success, win some games. But for you, the biggest success is like, it's like you said, like talking to those kids that have gone different places and like see like the work that you've put in and them living like, successful, fulfilling lives. And like that seems like more of a win for you. And so you might as well follow that path because that brings you more passion. It brings you more happiness. Because it's like you said, the coaching, it's kind of like playing. Coaching will be there. There's opportunities to coach. But if you leave that, if you don't open that door, that you never know if it'll be there.
Exactly that.
So no, I really appreciate that. Now we're coming to a little bit of the end of this. I warned you at the beginning, right before we recorded.
God.
Those who watch, they know I love some trivia. I got 5 questions for you, but it has to do with you. Got some things to do with Aston Villa, Antigua and Barbuda, and then one that's more just like Caribbean islands question. So
5 out of 5. Let's go.
Here we go. 5 out of 5. I believe in you. All right. Which former Aston Villa player has the most England caps?
You've killed me already. Oh my God. Hold on. England player with the most England caps. Oh, thrown off. Oh, who would it be?
You're gonna be disappointed.
I'm gonna go with James Milner.
It's not James.
No, it might.
Go ahead. You can change your mind. You haven't locked it in yet.
I'm gonna come with 2 more options. I don't know if it's Ashley Young. Ashley Young. Oh. Peter Crouch.
Since it's your first question, I'm gonna just say think a little earlier than that. I don't go super far. Think earlier than those 2. Those 3 actually.
Don't know how many Paul Merson got. Villa. English. Can't think. No, I'm done. It's gonna be 4 out of 5.
Gareth Southgate.
Of course. Of course it is.
That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Of course it is.
All right. Here we go. We're one question out of the way.
We're gonna get 90%. Don't worry.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Who has a higher goal per game ratio for Villa? This is I'm giving you options here. Benteke or Ollie Watkins?
Well, I've had a debate about those 2 recently. It's Ollie Watkins. I'm going to be mad. I think it's Christian Benteke.
It is. Barely.
Yeah, it has to be.
Barely.
Is it really? Okay.
0.49 for Benteke, 0.48 for Ollie Watkins.
Yes, interesting because Benteke was in a very weak team. So it kind of shows you how good he was.
He was bagging goals. Yeah.
Legend, that guy.
All right. In the 2010-11 season, so 2011 season, there were 5 players who played for Aston Villa who could have represented a Caribbean island nation. Can you name 3 of them? So you don't got to name all 5. I'm giving you.
Do they have caps already, as in for England or anyone else?
Some
uncapped.
No. They may have played for. I will say this: most of them played for another nation, mainly England.
Right.
But they could have at one point represented a different a Caribbean island nation.
So 2010-11 season, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Daniel Johnson was a part of that squad. I know he's Jamaican, so I know he technically plays them, so he doesn't count. No, there's a St. Lucian boy, Janoy Donantian. Don't know what he's doing at the minute. Nathan Delfonso, who was a part of that squad. Emil Heskey obviously could have. Who else was part of that squad? Darren Bent. I don't know where his family's from. Darren Bent possibly could have.
I will say they had to have played for Aston Villa that year, though. That was the only thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Who else would have Caribbean descent from that group? Fabian Delph would have Caribbean descent. Don't know what country his family's from though.
I will tell you, you've actually said 3 now.
I've actually got 3. Okay,
Yep.
what did you have on your list?
Young, Ashley Young is Jamaican. Jamaican descent.
Yeah.
Bent is Jamaican descent.
Okay.
Isaiah Osborne is Jamaican descent as well.
Was he a part of the squad that year? I didn't even know.
He played 1 game.
He was. Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Played 1 game. Fabian Delph, Guyana. Emil Heskey.
Guyanese, okay.
Yep, and then obviously Emil. You already know where he's from, or where he could represent. So there was 5. I think the first person you named, I think they might have been were they a youth team player or younger? I don't know. I don't think they actually got any cap.
Yeah, no, yeah, they were part of the squad, but they didn't get any first team.
Didn't play any first team minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. You got the question right. You got 2. See, like you said, you're gonna get 4 out of 5. Here we go. All right, number 4, all-time leading goal scorer in Antigua and Barbuda history.
Peter Byers. Is it not him?
It's not. You're not far.
I don't know.
You're not far off.
So confident about it as well.
You were very confident. That was the most confident you've been about any of the questions. You want another guess?
No, I don't know who it is. If it's not him, I have no clue.
Derek Edwards, 59 goals.
I don't know him.
Yeah. I think Byers was. I think Byers was second, but.
Okay.
Yep. Last question. Dwight York is first, but can you name the second highest Premier League goal scorer from a Caribbean island?
Dwight York's first. What, for Villa or just in general?
In general, in the Premier League. So not for Villa.
Oh, I would have thought it would have been. I thought it would have been Henri.
Well.
I thought he would have been first.
So that actually played for. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. That actually played for a Caribbean island.
Let me think. Jamaican strikers. You got Ricardo Fuller. Who else was a Caribbean striker that played in the Premier League? Got a decent record. Had someone to my head just now and I lost him. It's Kenwyne Jones. Ricardo Fuller, Kenwyne Jones. This question is going to drive me mad. Oh my god. Who else?
They have 56 goals, by the way.
It can't be Ricardo Fuller. I don't think it's him. It could be actually. Kenwyne Jones, possibly. But no, if he was that close to Dwight York, I think I would have known because they're both in the same nation. Jamaican forwards. Can't think. Nah, I give up. I'm going to be so mad. I guarantee I know who it is. I'm gone.
Jason Ewell.
No, I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have got it right.
Yeah. All right. I didn't know the name either, so I was a little surprised. I think I'm saying the name right. E-U-E-E or E-L-L. Yeah, Jason Ewell. From Jamaica.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have got it. I actually didn't know he played for them. How did I forget that? Yeah, I wouldn't have got it.
There you go.
I'm happy with that because I wouldn't have got
it. All right, that makes you feel a little better. Not too bad.
Not too bad.
We got
over 50%. That's good.
Right around hovering around 50%. Well, back to the gotta do the studying. Gotta do some studying for the next trivia question.
100%. Clearly, I don't know about football, man. I play it too much. I don't watch it enough.
There you go. That's what it is. You're just playing. You're playing too often. You're just not able to do the studying. That's okay. Look, Greg, it's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you coming on. Before you go, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of tell everybody where they can find you and then any last words that you have.
Sure. I just want to say thanks for having me on the show. I actually really appreciate you reaching out and allowing me to basically express myself, especially you being across the globe. And obviously, people over there are going to be listening to this too, which is amazing. And I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to be here. So thank you, first of all. So yeah, my name's Craig Heskey. So if you want to catch me on Twitter or Instagram, it's just at Craig Heskey. So full government name. There you are. You can catch me. It's all about one, my football journey. So my Instagram's got a bit of some of my interviews and podcasts I've done elsewhere. Um, Also have some of my own clips of some of the games I've played in as well. But yeah, my Twitter's all about education, football, everything is surrounding it. So yeah, if you want to catch me on that, at Craig Heskey on both those platforms, and yeah, get in touch and let's network.
Absolutely, that's the way to do it. You gotta collaboration is I think coming to the forefront because that's the silver lining of COVID. But
Definitely.
I think it's maybe the greatest tool we have, probably in general, but definitely in the football world, in the coaching world. All
Yeah,
of it
so,
is collaboration. So, and
100%.
I'm very happy we were able to get on here, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah,
Uh,
same, same. I appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely. Until next time, Tactical Foul. I'm Kyle Grew, Craig Heskey. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Take care, guys. Look after.